Yeah, it was this this week. Yesterday and today, classes have been pretty interesting. You know, like I said yesterday, I wasn't ready at all, but it did come through, and we did some stuff, and a lot. Well, a lot the resistance comes from thought, and thought in terms of judgment, or thought in terms of reactivity, or pressure, but all that's coming from outside. And it was funny. We were doing a spinal flex to warm up, and usually, heart inhaling forward, exhaling back. And so we did a thing where inhale and flex, keep flexing with the
Hmm.
breath held in, and then exhale and keep flexing with the breath held out, noticing the difference. And it's like breath in is like thoughts running around at large. Breath out is like thoughts clearing out of the equation.
Hmm.
Because when you have the breath in and flex, yeah, it's good. You're incorporating prana, but there's room
Hmm.
less room to flex. And
Hmm.
and so the forward and back motion is shorter. Breath out, a lot more working space. So,
Mm.
just working on, okay, well, this month is positive mind or projective mind. So if you're gonna work with that, you have to release a lot of thought.
Mm.
A lot of the usual thoughts coming through. Um, see if there's some way to just notice them without judging or reacting to them, and then there's less distraction, because it happens, in a news cycle and politics and all kinds of stuff. You're doing something and focusing on something, all of a sudden somebody goes, hey, look at this nice bright shiny thing, or scary thing, whatever it is, so that we react and we miss opportunity.
Mm.
And as far as consciousness goes, we miss the opportunity to realize who we are.
Mm. Hmm.
Right.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
my one of my favorite quotes, and I think about it all the time, is the devil works in distractions.
yeah.
And it really, I mean, I feel like a lot of what we struggle with at the microcosm and at the macrocosm is a deprivation of real attention. We have attention and we can focus, but we don't necessarily use that as the tool that it is. And I think, we're talking about positive mind, being able to consciously hone and focus your positive intentions. I mean, that's where the real jam is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think within Shuniya, the the attention coming from the essential self is what we're all after. But we try to hone in the intention while still being outside.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
It
Yeah.
requires a different, really difficult sense of orientation. Right.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
I think a lot of us, and even having the training that I have and the knowledge that I've had, um, I still operate in many ways as my externalized self and not from that internal, more subtle parts of myself, because that's the programming, you know. It's what are other people going
yeah.
to think, and what kind of impact is this going to have, and how can I capitalize on this eventually, or whatever. It's, you know, and I think those relationships
Yes.
are important. I think it is important. I don't think you can necessarily, I don't think you can really separate fully the inner from the outer. But I think that we,
Right.
especially in the West, we lack a relationship of the deeply inner.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, well, are are you looking at your life from the outside in or the inside out? You're still living your life. It's still in play, but what's the point of reference?
Mm-hmm. Right. Like, where's your
And
locus?
we're
Where's your
hypnotized
center?
to think the point of reference is out here.
Right. Yeah. So tell
Yeah.
us, um, so positive mind is actually three, right? So when we're talking about 12, as in the month of December, we're condensing that down into the three. So what
Correct.
is like as we're looping back around, and I know we kind of talked about this last month, but what is the difference between like a purely three versus like a 12 to a three? Is there a difference? Or just in context of like the
Well,
arc of the year, how is that significant for like this time period? And of course, we've got like winter solstice coming, and so there are other influences going on as we're like ending the year as well.
yeah. Um, well, from purely a numerological standpoint, I don't know. Even from, everything within yogic numerology works between 1 and 11. But for the intents and purposes of the practice, um, it makes the most sense to have gone through each of the steps. But it's okay if we've just gone through one or two or several. The idea is, well, whatever you were drawn to pick up on within all the light bodies, or whatever, like the 11th month was about synchronizing and harmonizing all of the bodies. And then since we have already done the positive mind in March, that projective ability of the arc line and our sensitivity, now we're going to awaken to opportunity, to the possibilities of projection, by reorienting and recalibrating for what we went through 1 through 11. So now it's being closely attuned as we can possibly be to the divine, to recognize opportunity when it comes. And so now we're just, whether anyone has done something previously or it's their lucky day and they happen to come to a class, then it's like, okay, you can agree or not agree that life, the divine, is moving through you as you. And now you're looking to see, okay, as I relate to possibilities, as I relate to divine will working and providing infinite numbers of opportunities, or, countless numbers of opportunities in any given moment, can I relate to it as co-creating with divine into the moment? And what that does is that when we approach creativity from a co-creator standpoint, when we commit to letting what comes out in terms of response to circumstance, we let it come from us as life moving through us as us, then we're subscribing to the mode of operation for the divine. That, okay, anything in front of you, rather than judging it and defining it and criticizing it, you just go, hey, let's just hold it in a space of non-reaction, not subscribing to the usual train of thought. But if there's a practice, it would be coming into a relationship with our thoughts, which just means we're going to notice without judgment and without reaction.
Hmm.
Because thoughts come, and we like to think there are thoughts, but probably not. Even if they became our thoughts, that wasn't the initial purpose. And so we get to hold the space of our mind and just go, okay, any given thought, any given reaction, does that make me feel connected and unlimited and creative, or does it criticize me in some way? And if
Mm.
it criticizes me in some way, then I got to go, okay, now it's time for heavy duty Shuniya, bring that in and let Om, life force moving, and Gurudev, divine wisdom, work it out. Just let the divine analyze and let the divine wisdom say, okay, maybe that you needed to pay attention. This one, you just need to, just extract or dissolve it and make sure, it's like putting all the uncomfortable and derogatory thoughts into a dissolution chamber, which is essentially what Shunya is. So in that sense, we're refining opportunity and the sense of creating either wealth or prosperity, but mostly the ability to help others. And then, the universe reciprocates, whether it comes in the form of payment or whether it comes in the form of some other opportunity.
I
So,
I want to ask you about trust, because for me, when I'm doing this work and when I'm observing people sort of in this process, um, lately it seems like, one of the reasons that we get so deeply into our reactive minds and we fight and we strive and we toil unnecessarily, which isn't to say that there aren't toils and trials in life. Of course there are, but I think that we place such an undue burden on ourselves to like solve the problem or figure it out or be so reacted to it that we can't have any action because we're so bowled over by the experience. And for me, it's like, there's a lack of like personal trust. Like if I don't react to this right now, that I'm gonna like miss this opportunity, or that I'm not gonna, you know, like the reactivity is like become associated with like who that person is identifying themselves as. And so that space of, creating space between and having shunya, it's like, how can I trust that I'm going to choose correctly, or how can I trust that I'll be whole after at this? And then there's like the greater trust, which is the trust of the universe that, hey, if I don't deal with this right now, if I choose to not engage with this right now, will a solution just naturally come out of this? And we've talked about this before, and we've both had experiences that, I'm not even gonna deal with this. And it just magically shifts, and it's not the same as apathy, right? It's just this like sort of deep knowing of the self that like, I don't have to fight this battle, even though it looks on paper like this is my battle and I should be fighting it and I should be mad and I should be, but actually it's better for me to just let this one go by. So
yeah,
what is that? How do you speak to that if someone's struggling with that at that level of trust?
well, again, it depends on what aspect of us as awareness or us as identity are concerned with the situation at hand and its outcome. Yeah, in the yogic sense, each stream of life is already connected with the divine. What we are engaged in down here on this vibrational level is the translation of the spiritual crystalline essence into how we identify with our lives. And part of that identifying paradigm comes from outside influences and outside information. So what we're asking to do, to be done in the instance that you noted, is we're asking our egocentric mind, based on our personality, based on our likes and dislikes, what we attract and what we push away out of perceived protection. We're asking that aspect of the mind to find the solution to this problem. And the realization coming out of that is that we're asking the mind to solve itself. You know, it's like asking a 2-year-old to come up with an appropriate response to a situation they are emotionally triggered by. You know, it's like, no, at this point, you know, I'm a little more neutral than you because you're in it and I'm looking at it from the outside. And one possible solution is you just sit for a moment and let the emotions pass and see what remains. You know, and so it's the same thing with, as my egocentric mind is identifying and perceiving a situation by my own bias, which covers only this much in here of all the possible responses. I'm letting go of all of these possible responses here. That and the other possible responses really don't come until I let go of the egocentric interpretation of the moment. So the trust comes from, okay, who am I going to trust? I mean, that's essential in any contract, any information. Who do you trust? You know, and some people say, well, I'll trust this person, but not that person. Well, the yogi will say, I trust in the divine, and everything else is just, like they say in the courts, it's hearsay. Right? You know, you just hear you run into that all the time. Objection, Your Honor, hearsay. And then they say, yeah, it's sustained. So pretty much most of our life is hearsay, or based upon hearsay, based upon what my parents discovered from their interaction with somebody in the schoolyard when they were 7 years old. Right? And they just carry it through to adulthood, and then they pass it on to me, and I carry it forward and I pass it on to my children. So the long answer is that, yeah, the only the best repository of trust and giving and taking trust comes with relationship with life. And that just comes from learning the language of Shuniya, learning the language of the divine, knowing what the laws of nature are and the hierarchy of the laws, because sometimes they'll contradict each other because one is a higher expression than another. So the idea is, okay, do I even have a relationship with divine life, with life expressing as me? Do I? You know, and the yogis, you know, have taken on the I was going to call it a task, but just the activity of learning about what's divine, what gives me life, what supports me, what nurtures me, what protects me, what inspires me. You know, and so this month we're working on, okay, any number of things can come into the head, the brain, the mind, whatever. It's not in here, but it's all over. Whatever's coming in, as I'm looking to see, does it fit into my universal field? I run it through the heart before it gets down to the belly and into the denser vibrations. And so, you know, luckily we worked with the fourth body, you know, with the neutral mind, and you go, okay, the heart, it seems like it has a bias, but when you look at it, it's pretty neutral, but it knows to respond to positive input, and it knows how to project positive response. And so, yeah, I guess short answer is you trust your heart for the moment. And those qualities can translate differently as we refine. You know, my heart becomes it becomes more comfortable. It's like you and I are talking, we don't know each other very well. I'm going to be careful what I say, what I ask, how I respond to something. But as I get to know you more, I can realize that, okay, whatever I say, you're just going to hold it for a minute and realize that I'm just, instead of telling you something, I'm asking you to reflect something and say, hey, does this make sense for you? And so the conversation with the heart, which is the encapsulator of the soul, is already directly connected to divine, to life, just as all the cells of our body are. But that is a connection with the least amount of interference, soul to divine. But once it tries to translate through emotions and mind and body, the distortions that we put in by trusting hearsay dilute the message.
When you said that, it made me think of how, the mind, we place so much burden on the mind, and we trust more, at least in Western society, we for sure trust more our mind. And so, like, if I don't know somebody, I spend a lot of time in my mind evaluating, observing, assessing, oh, they reacted this way when I said this, or they, and to get to the heart is so subtle. You have to be able to have the space in the mind chatter long enough to hear and sense the heart, because the mind is just like all the time. Even if you practice, even if you have even if you study mindfulness and you teach mindfulness and you blah blah, like that thing never stops ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to get to the heart space where that true field of equanimity exists, you have to be able to drop into that and sort of tune out and learn to shut off that need to assess and evaluate and compare and contrast and all of that. Um, we got our
Yeah.
10,
Yeah.
we got our 10-minute warning from Zoom.
Okay. But it's like the heart is the container for the neutral mind. And so yeah, the mind, unreliable as a guide, totally unreliable. And it knows that we don't. We've had the experience of listening to the mind and reacting or responding with gusto, and then find out that we failed, and then the mind goes, what are you doing, you stupid? Like it throws you under the bus. And so that's what the gurus say, the manmuk, or that person who is attached to the mind is doomed to that cycle of experience, whereas the anchoring into the heart and the neutral mind, gives us a whole nother perspective, and then it can be quiet. But we're thinking, I know when meditation was mentioned to me when I was a teenager, it was just like, yeah, just sit really still and don't talk. I'm going, what? Nobody even said it was looking for any condition of the mind, right? But yeah, you can be in deep meditation and the mind can still be working away, but you're just going blah 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 blah. I hear you, and then you go back into your stillness, and then sometimes you can get it to stop for a couple seconds or maybe minutes.
Yeah, I think, it's such a common misconception for people, who aren't familiar with the practice and have done the practice long enough to know experientially how that works. But, it's so triggering as an instructor when people still say, "Oh, you quiet the mind." And it's like, if you go in to a seated time with the intention of quieting your mind, it is going to be probably, unless you enjoy torturing yourself, it will be the most torturous however many minutes you sit there, because you're just going to be chasing, the Energizer Bunny, like chasing that forever. Where, I think the work that you're doing, where you're actually, breaking things down and going into like these really specific places in the body and in the head, where you can really focus on, okay, where is my posture? And, is Shuniya like a place or a thought or a, whatever? And it's like, well, it's the equilibrium point. It's the point of all conception, and it's the point of all returning, and it's, you know, who knows what that is. Um, but I think it gets us to the place where we're making choices, more conscious, more embodied choices. And that, to me, accessing that and then combining that with the positive projection of, utilizing the positive mind, and then in combination with the arc line, which amplifies that positive projection, it could be a very beautiful time for people who are, willing to sort of divest a little bit from the mind chatter and the chaos, and truly go within.
Yeah. When I was talking with David this weekend, he brought up the concept that, it's like any given thought, any given experience is like a stick. You just pick up, you just hold a stick, you feel it, you experience it. And then you look at the stick and you go, oh yeah, a stick. But then you look at it more and you realize the stick has two ends. Which end are you going to orient to? Or are you going to orient to the whole stick? So any experience will have a positive pole and a negative pole. And the positive pole doesn't mean it's good. The negative pole doesn't mean it's bad. It's just, those two are needed to form the stick. Otherwise, you've got a circle. And there are a lot of sticks in the world. So we just decide, can I just hold the stick? And realize, yeah, there are two ends. One end could be pointy, the other could be blunt, one could be splintered, one could be smooth. It doesn't matter, but it makes that stick, and it makes that stick that stick.
Right.
Just like every experience makes itself unique. Unless, we try to manipulate it into looking like all the other sticks in our life.
Well, it's interesting that, because I think at a cultural level, at a societal level, we're missing that concept of like, hey, this is a dialogue. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
there's always going to be people at the extreme ends of a dialogue, but the point is the exegesis. The point is the conversation itself and why we need to have it.
Yes.
And both sides have important aspects that, it's meant to be integrated, so then we can move on to another topic. And back in the 1800s, turn of the century, this was more common. Like, people would sit around and have these philosophical conversations, and ideas were generated, and who knows? I think that we are moving towards a new renaissance of thought. I believe that
Mhm.
yourself and myself and people that do this work and the people that are watching this who are called to this type of, conversation, this is a renaissance of soul and of thought, and many, many, many traditions have prophecies that that next revolution will come from America, from the West. And in spite of all of the many questions and conflicts and chaos and who knows what else drama that's available to distract you, um, I do see that happening. I see it in my relationships, and I see it in myself. Um, and that's how real change is affected. It's always from individual to the intimate relationship, and then into the community, and then it expands. And so for anyone who's watching this, I don't know why I got off on this tangent, but for anyone who's watching this, who's still kind of, this is a difficult time of year for people. And a lot of these sort of big issues feel much bigger at this time of year because of all the personal stuff that gets attached to stuff like that. And you know, one person is not going to like go out and immediately affect change. The best that we can do is pray over it, right? And like send our positive intentions and believe fully that that has an effect and a power. And that's where that trust comes in too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if you don't want to engage in polarities, don't have conversations, just talk to yourself. And then the other thing, as we move to December 31st, I think it would be good just to go through our store of experience and thoughts and preferences and identities and see if we could get to the point from midnight, December 31st to that next minute of January 1st, say, "Oh, what can I leave behind? And what am I comfortable carrying forward? Can I make a true shift?"
Yeah.
That would be amazing. Everybody gets up on January 1st and tries to figure out who everybody became overnight because they dropped all of this stuff that wasn't working. That would be fun.
That would be lovely. That would be lovely. I would be down for that adventure for sure. I'm ready for something different. I've been repeating some patterns myself that I'm like, we're definitely not carrying this forward.
Yeah. And in that sense, this is the time where we give it back to the divine and say, okay, Om Gurudev, your problem now.
Yeah.
Whatever you say, whatever I notice within my heart of hearts, I'm willing to give it a shot. Take the garbage away, please.
Well, on that wonderful note,
Yeah.
we'll say good day. We don't want to get cut off by Zoom, so we'll
Okay.
gracefully go. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much, Kate.
Always a
It's always-
pleasure. And people can check out the events page and join the newsletter because we'll have some things going out for end of year events, including one coming up on the 17th. So
Yes.
look out for that. And you can always watch the recaps throughout the year because this information will never get old. And we're looking forward to 2023.
Indeed. It's close.
It's so close. All right.
All right.
Satnam.
Blessings, Satnam.
Blessings.